Hey, what's up, house groups? We're kicking off a brand new series tonight called A Rebel's Guide to Joy. And what we're going to do over the next few months is take a look at how we can cultivate lasting joy in our lives, even in the midst of this broken world. Because in Christ, we are citizens of a rebel kingdom. This countercultural kingdom that lives and sees through an entirely different lens than the world around us. We're going to find out how to do that by digging into the book of Philippians, which is just one of the most encouraging books in the entire Bible. I love it. There are a few things I love about it. First and foremost, it's one of those books that you can pick up wherever you're at along your spiritual journey. If you're new to Christ and you're not even sure how to read the Bible and so you haven't been doing it, this is a book you can pick up day one and read and get something out of it. If you've been following Jesus for a while, you feel like your faith is stagnant, this is a book you can pick up and let God reignite that flame in your soul. And if you're on fire for God, this is a book you can pick up and read. I'd encourage you to do it, to pick it up. You could read it in one sitting. You can read it over the course of this series, but read through Philippians and let the voice of God just thunder in your soul from its pages. This is a book we need. Life is hard, and this is an incredible guide to being joyful in the middle of it. One of the other things I love about Philippians is it's the only one of Paul's letters, his epistles, that isn't written to correct some massive problem in the church. It's just full of encouragement. And the rest of his books are all written, to address issues. I think it's easy for us sometimes to get frustrated with churches that aren't doing it right or that are, that are getting so many things wrong. We get mad at the church, and it's easy to think like, oh, if only we could go back to New Testament times. I've heard people say it to me. People have said it to me recently within the last 2 days. Like, oh, look, the guide is all here. If we just do it like it says right here, just the way that they did it in the New Testament, then we'd get it right. We wouldn't be frustrated anymore. If the Corinthians and the Colossians and the Ephesians and the Romans and the Galatians and the Corinthians again weren't screwing it up, we'd be missing a huge chunk of the New Testament. So if you haven't been frustrated with revision yet, you will be soon. And rightly, because ask my wife, I get more wrong than I get right. And so the church sometimes is imperfect, and it always has been, because it's made up of us, and we're people and we're imperfect. But this book is not written to address something imperfect. It's just written to encourage a church that's getting it right. And I think part of what helped the Philippians get it right, what made it so great, was the unique and diverse makeup of its original members. On Sunday, we walked through Acts 13 and this whole story about how this church was founded with these three completely different people. A socialite, a slave, and a soldier. Asian, Italian, and Greek. Rich, broke, and blue collar. These three people who would have never spent 1 minute together outside of Jesus got connected by this thing we call the church, and it's so cool. And part of the reason it happened, part of the reason they ever got connected together at all, is the fact that Paul never wrote anybody off. Never. Anybody. It didn't matter how intellectual they were. It didn't matter whether they were oppressed, demon-possessed slave girl. He never wrote anybody off, because he believed that every human being on this planet is created in the image of God, and Jesus loved them enough to die for it. And so he just met people right where they were at. And it changed the world. These three people in Philippi changed the entire future of the Western world. It's the first church in the history of the West, on the continent of Europe. And I worry that it's so easy today for you and me living in this culture to miss out on the beauty of what Paul did, and to miss out on some of the beauty that made this church in Philippi great. I know it's just simple for us to cluster in our own little demographic safe spaces and to write certain groups off, or to write certain people off, or to just do community over here, but not have this vision to do community across age and race and gender and socioeconomic status and everything else. And I think what happens when we do that is we miss out. We miss out on the joy that we can find when we're reconciled, not just to God, but we're reconciled to the relationship with every other human being on this planet that God made us for. We miss out on the joy of that reconciliation. We miss out on the beauty of that kind of community. And we also miss out on the opportunity as the church to show the love of Jesus to a watching world. Like to show the fullness of it to all the people, all the different ones, with all their different problems and all their different stories and all their different histories and all their different demographics, all of them who are on the outside of the church looking in. There's so many hurting people in our world, so many hurting people in our city who are just broken, and they're asking the question, they're looking, where do I belong? Where do I fit in? They're looking at the church saying, am I welcome here? Let's be brutally honest for a minute. There are too many churches. There are too many churches in our world where the answer to that question, am I welcome here, ends up being something like this in our world. No. Yes. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. And Jesus, I think, is looking at that saying, yes. Yes. This church thing is for everybody. You're all broken, but you're all created in my image. I loved you enough to die for you. And I think if we're going to make that happen, if we're going to create a space where the answer isn't no, yes, no, not you, but you, and the answer is just yes. No matter who you are or where you've been, you can belong here. Before you believe like us, before you behave like us, because we are convinced that Jesus changes people, and if you belong here, you're going to crash into Jesus, and he's going to change everything. Yes, if we're going to do that, we got to be intentional. It's going to require intentionality and a little bit of self-sacrifice on all of our ends, but what it's going to create is something beautiful that only the church can produce in this world, and nothing else. What it's going to create is a space where people meet Jesus, and that's awesome.